Tapped Out Podcast Network. I'm Nick McDaniel, and this week I'm joined by Action Wrestling CEO Mack Griffin. I would ask you how you're doing, but I got a pretty good feeling how that's going to go, man.
Well, I am still very sore from what happened Friday night, and I still don't care because I'm gloating in the light of victory.
You're going to have multiple occasions, I feel like, on this episode to kind of share your thoughts of how everything went. But before we get started, again, it's that time of year. We're heading into the holidays, and I'm just telling you, if it were me, I can't think of a better gift right now than a Patreon membership over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. You could do it for the whole year up front. And Little Birdie said there might be something with Black Friday. I'm just saying to keep an eye out on social media because, look, you get the show notes, at the $1 level, the $5, you get the weekly shows early. $10, anything we do, you get early, as well as the digital collectible. And then, of course, at the $25 level, you get that 8.5 by 11 physical copy signed by said star. And yes, folks, I'm mailing out November's. I know it's a little bit later. I usually mail them out on the 17th. But the new ones are coming out. They're going to get mailed out literally today as we are recording on the 18th, even though this – by the way, if you're a Patreon member, you'd be listening to this on the 18th as the day I'm mailing them. But if you're not going to listen to it till the 19th. So they would have mailed out yesterday. That's a lot of time travel thing, as I like to joke around when I do these shows.
What if you're in Australia and you're in a different time zone? Then everything you just said might be different.
And we do have, believe it or not, we do have listeners in Australia, so I don't even know what day you're listening to this at this point, whether you're a Patreon member or you're not. That's crazy.
It's Friday night in Australia already, I think.
It's what it feels like at times. Yeah, time travel's a thing, and I'm a time travel junkie. Are you?
I love time travel movies. I'm a big fan of Back to the Future. I can quote pretty well. I like the obscure quotes from Back to the Future. I would say the best time travel movie I've ever seen is a movie called Time Crimes, which you have to read because it's dubbed. It's amazing. But time travel movies. Oh, also, Primer is another fantastic time travel movie I've seen, I think, 3 times, and I have no idea what's going on. I still don't understand it at all.
My wife, she gives me a lot of grief about it because it could be just a really bad time travel. Like the movie could be bad, but if time travel's in it, I'm like, I gotta watch this. I gotta see how this ends. I'm like Van Damme Time Cop. Like I'm in. I'm sold. It's not a great movie, but I'm in, and I've watched it multiple times. And she just shakes.
I just really hope someday an old me from the future shows up with a sports almanac.
Wishful thinking, right? Well, that's if somebody could come back in time. We're kind of going to do the same here as we jump into the Indy Rewind here on the Tapped In show, and we kind of look back at what happened this past weekend. And look, from yourself, a whole lot of stuff happened, and we might as well start there because I can't think of a better place to start. Friday, Southern Honor ran first time in their new venue there at Reformation Brewery. By the way, full disclosure here, I was as skeptical as anybody. Them moving to that building, just moving out of the Action building. Let's start there. Let's be positive. Great venue. I actually really liked the way it came off. It was cold, don't get me wrong, but take that out of the equation. I thought the building was actually louder because of the way it's set up than the Action building. You were kind of in the ring. How did that translate in the ring?
Yeah, it was loud. I really liked. See, I think what actually benefited Southern Honor, and this is something that I thought of Friday and Saturday after the show, because you can't really speculate on it until afterwards. But I think what happened is you had a building that was such. I mean, no building mattered more to its promotion than Southern Honor. Southern Honor's venue. Then you lose it. Which, by the way, if you drove by on the way to the show, it's still not torn down, which is very frustrating. But you lose that. So had they gone into a similar style building, might have been not a huge change, but a change that was kind of like, you can compare everything to the previous venue. At Reformation Brewery, it's going to be a total 180. And in talking about this, I said, I think the promotion benefited by everybody knowing it's going to be something completely different, but you still can have a lot of the same things. Like there was a screen set up for videos. There was a big Southern Honor logo splayed up on the wall. The sound was good. So you still had a lot of the hallmarks of it in an entirely new venue that you can't really fully compare. So they had a total reset, kept a lot of, I mean, obviously a lot of the wrestling and wrestlers, I don't think there was anybody really making their debut. So it was all the same, but you were able to transition people as opposed to kind of coming into a new building that's not as good. You can't compare the two. So to make a short story long, I think they benefited by being so radically different. It was loud. There was a lot of fans who were excited about the venue, it being a brewery and being able to have a drink while you're watching wrestling. Breweries in Georgia the last several years have been kind of the hit venue. So it was a slam dunk win. And then you had an incredible double main event featuring myself.
I also think when you brought up the crowd, it benefited that they kind of pushed everybody. It felt like because everybody was crammed in a little more. Where at the Action Building, people used to just spread out, and they would bring chickens, and it kind of pushed them in.
And there was no guardrails. If you notice this, and I know you might not, because you are kind of somebody who likes to stand and be a little bit further away, but the fans were so much closer. Mm-hmm. And unless you're in the ring, you don't really notice. But I like fans being right there on top. There is normally a big separation, guardrails, and then you have your at the old building, you had the commentary and Diana and Zach's table. You had everything inside the guardrails. And here it was really just chairs. Fans were so much closer. So that front row is entirely different than it was at the Action Building. So no, everybody being closer leads to a different feel.
And again, let's jump into the card a little bit. You brought it up. There's quite a few things on the undercard that I wanted to highlight. One, massive upset. We're not going to probably spend a huge amount of time on this, but Grayson Pierce and Christian Taylor defeat Happy Madison. Like, it was like a couple minutes. Like, it didn't seem like, what a huge win for those two youngsters, seemingly coming out of nowhere, right, and picking up a win. And I know they've been there and they've had a lot going on, but I won't lie to you. That was probably one of the biggest upsets of the weekend, and maybe longer than that.
Yeah, we all know who Sunny Days is, and he had a long day. And how did that affect going into a match? And then Sauer and Arnold on commentary, how distracted were they? And I can tell you firsthand, hey, I wrestled them earlier this year. They're a tough as hell team. They got caught, and now we got to find out from Grayson and Christian, was this a fluke, or are they going to be able to capitalize on this long term? I'm betting that they'll be able to capitalize long term because they are two talented individuals who are getting better.
I agree, and I'm look. They're going to come up in a conversation later on the episode, so I want to save some of that. Hunter James recaptured the Jake the Snake Legacy Championship in a four-way ladder match with Kyle Matthews, Aston Starr, Bryce Cannon, basically all former or current, the Jake the Snake Legacy champions in a ladder match. And the youngster Hunter James picks up a huge win and an exciting match, to say the least. But, again, Hunter James is going to come up because he's literally adding more to his collection down the road. Kind of in no particular order, I'm going to swap these two. We're going to talk about the main event first, and then I'll come back to your match that you had as well. But Alexander Lev, he's your new Southern Honor champion. Huge win over Joe Black. Been a long time coming. Lev been climbing that mountain. Came up short months ago against Joe Black, but finally, captures this title and kind of solidifies his place as now like, hey, I deserve a place at the table here in Georgia, wrestling. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's had other titles. This one's got a little more something on it, not just because of the promotion that it is, but also the man he beat for that title. That's just my opinion. Thoughts on Lev becoming the new Southern Honor champion?
Well, you hit it right there. I mean, when you're talking about pillars of Georgia wrestling, you have the wrestlers who've been around for a decade or more. Joe Black is one of those wrestlers. So if you have the opportunity to be able to knock off Joe Black, especially in in Joe's style of match, with Joe having the champion's advantage, that's a gigantic deal. I know Lev really dug down and worked hard for that. He trained. I mean, heck, um, he had a huge win last month at Center Stage for NWA, so I know he was going in with a ton of momentum. I mean, you can't say enough about Lev. He was a good and eager kid when he started wrestling, and he's been really transitioning, especially the last several months, into just a absolute stud. He's sharp. He understands himself. He looks like $1,000,000, and he's in the midst of taking that leap into the next level. He just had a real impressive win for us after coming back last week at Action Wrestling, and he looked fantastic, and he helped. He carried everything that's been going through to take the title. They had like a 20-minute war. It was a hell of a match to watch in the back, and there was, as some notable spectators as well.
Yeah, look, it got out there. I mean, there's pictures out there of everything. After the match was over, AJ Styles was in the house. There's a connection there that some people know, and so it was kind of a moment for him to kind of step in the ring and kind of, shake both guys' hands. I think, give them their respect for the match that they put on, and of course, Lev becoming, look, a lot of the case was this is Lev's first major singles championship in Georgia as far as titles go. Again, no disrespect to the titles he's had before, but Southern Honor kind of has we always talk about the Power Five here, and they kind of typically belong in there. So that's kind of what, that represented it when I say he finally has a seat at the table. Definitively, he has a seat at the table. Let's go with that. AJ Styles acknowledged that, being there was kind of cool. I know it was, a big thing for a lot of the locker room being in that moment. But I think more than anything, it was another kind of a tip of the cap and acknowledgement to Lev, and what he achieved on that night. So now.
Yeah, it's nice when you have somebody like AJ who wants to come in and wants to watch Lev and hope that he wins the title. And then, when he got excited about and wanted to present the belt, that's a cool moment. Yeah, it's a really cool moment. So. I mean, I know just minutes later, it was out there on social media with people, hey, he made a surprise appearance. It's like, that that happens when you're a wrestling promotion doing good things.
Oh, I agree 100%. That's and it was cool to see. So I gonna put it out there. That's why you need to be going out to these local, the Georgia indie shows. That happens more than you would actually think and imagine. It does. So go out to those shows, and you never know who's going to show up all over the state. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes. I know, look, it's part of why, I said, hey, it's without question the reason you had to be the guest host this week. Yourself and Gary Lamb in a steel cage. We've talked about it, and everybody's like, well, was it a great match? I'm like, it was a fight, dude. It wasn't a match. It is what we all expected it to be. Kendo sticks and just forks and you name it, like all the stuff involved. Of course, on top of that, you're in a cage. But you pick up a big win. I mean, it's a huge, massive win across the state of Georgia, and everybody's got to tip their cap to you at this point. You defeated Gary Lamb in the steel cage. And by the way, I want to reemphasize, a lot of people are saying, like, some of the tactics used there at the end, not necessary. Steel cage match, anything goes. You got to be prepared for that kind of stuff. And everybody knows, look, I'm a big friend of Gary Lamb, but it is what it is, man, and that's what cage matches are.
Hey, then and you were there when he laid down the gauntlet. He's the one who wanted the cage match. And, I'm a wrestler going back 26 years. So if you're going to challenge me to a cage match, and hey, all the advantage was him because I've never been in a cage match before. I've been in street fights. I've been hardcore matches. I've been in death matches, but I've never fought in a steel cage. And it was his home territory. It's his friend who owns Reformation Brewery. It's his crowd who's coming to see him. I mean, I've got like 12-year-old girls flipping me off in the front row as I'm coming out. And, this is something that's been brewing for 7 years, since really before Southern Honor ran their first show when we had Wars of Words. and it escalated. And then, 2 years ago, I decided I would take the fight to Canton, and I'm very glad I did, because I can say the words and mean them, that I won the war. I won the Georgia Wrestling War, and it's been an amazing year. And I'm going to live off this win for a while. And Southern Honor fans are never going to hear me shut up about it, because I took your guy who was so revolutionary, such a good performer, such a good talker, and I shoved his words right down his throat with a steel chain.
How did you get the chain?
Certain things happen in steel cage matches, and you never know. I thought Miss Faye was going to try to help Gary out, because I had a big advantage on Gary and was about to knock him out. And then, Miss Faye doesn't like me. She never has liked me. She's told me to my face, I do not like you. And I don't know. She must love Southern Honor Wrestling more than she loves Gary Lamb. And that's interesting.
Look, there's a lot of, this is the thing. There's a lot. I know you said you won the war, and I think you have this feeling that it's over. But it's not over, because there's a lot of explaining to be done. We'll get it, and I'm sure.
Oh, it's not. Oh, it's not over. It's not over. It's escalating. I cannot wait for another show at Southern Honor. I might bring myself a red carpet to come out in, because who is a bigger top dog at Southern Honor than me? Alexander Lev is your champion, but I'm the top dog. And me and Gunnar Miller are going to have some things we're going to say. I just know that so many people over the years have wanted to shut up Gary Lamb, and I'm the one who got to do it. And I backed up what I said.
Look, all of those questions and more to be answered. Follow them on social media, obviously, with the holidays, and it's an outside show. I know there's some dates that are going to be popping up. So we just want to make sure you're following them on social media, because we are going to find out what's next in this, this situation. What happened? Does Joe Black get a rematch? Does he want to rematch it right out of the gate with Lev? Does somebody else step up to the plate? A lot of questions, still left to be made. Again, date not determined yet. I'm sure the next show will probably be at Reformation. That's what I've heard. But we'll just, again, follow them on social media to make sure you know when the next time Southern Honor's running. But also, look, other things on Friday. SCA, they ran their show. They run it on a weekly basis. A lot of stuff going on. Obviously, Greatness Inc., they're the new tag team champions, as Jacob Ashworth has to fill in for Tower to tag with Seabolt. That's a lot of questions. Nick Halen retains his title, the Friday Night Championship, and Da Silva. The question marks I want to, SCA Heavyweight Championship on the line. Luke Da Silva is your champion. In a rarity, the match was stopped in a no contest as Jackson Carter seems to suffer an injury, so a lot of people need to kind of follow up and see, hey, how serious was it? Is he going to be okay? He was a threat to Da Silva's titles, but if he's injured, who's next? Let's jump to Saturday. GPW ran a big show up in Jasper. Lots of stuff going on, obviously there. JD Inc. successfully defended his title against KJ Impala because it ended in a DQ. I say technically he did, and he ended it in a DQ, but so he, of course, retains. Also, Josh Cantrell, his feud with the people going on. So Josh Fitz is the owner of the gun pawn shop range that they run their show at, but Fitz interfered in his match because he tried to use a chair, Cantrell, and, of course, things got and it cost Cantrell his match. I think we can see where this thing's escalating down the road. Keep an eye on there. But the big news coming out of the show, Trevor Blackwell, he did successfully defend his title against Jimmy Wild, but right after the match, Jimmy Wild attacked him, broke a clipboard over his head, and then cashed his opportunity. He had a contract to have a match anytime he wanted to, and boom, Jimmy Wild is your new GPW heavyweight champion. So again, they run up there on Jasper. I think their next show is January 17th, next year. It's kind of weird that we're at that time of year now where some of the next show dates have 2026 at the end of them. And, they've had a super hot crowd there. Check them out. They're on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So, as well, Passion of Wrestling, they ran down in South Georgia. Big news coming out of there. They have a new champion as well, as the Dullahan, the Irish Grim Reaper. He defeated Cody Behringer and Swole, captured that championship. But now there's all kinds of other, question marks coming out of there, and those will all be answered on December the 6th as well. We all know now Onefall's running so many shows, we've kind of moved away from saying they ran this day, that day. We're kind of call it the Onefall block. They ran 2 shows this weekend, one in Gainesville, massively successful show. If you haven't been to the American Legion, have you been to that American Legion up there yet and seen one of their shows?
I haven't, I don't believe. I would really like to check out that building because I know I've wrestled in Gainesville in the past, and I'm really curious if it's the same building. It's possible. I'd love to make it up because I do like to go to Onefall shows. I've wrestled for them a few times, and I would like to make it up there at some point. I mean, they run so many shows. It's funny that you say they ran 2 shows. It's like, that's a light weekend for Onefall. That's like a weekend off for them.
The Gainesville location, it's the American Legion. It's a really low roof. It's a more compact room, and the acoustics are bananas. They can have 115 people in there, and it sounds like 300 just because of the sound just bounces all over the place in there. And at this particular one, there was a birthday party with about 40 kids in there. So you can imagine how that sounded on Friday. Specifically when, you got matches going on like Brady Booker, Tyler Shute versus Grillo and Jack Jameson as the main event. Other crazy stuff going on. But then they also, by the way, they ran on Monday night. We're recording the morning after. I actually made it to this show up in Watkinsville. They have a really cool venue there at South Main Brewing. And as you probably can imagine, Vari Morales, Brady Booker, and Billy Gunn, 6-man is the main event versus Jimmy Wild, Elijah Drago, and Anthony Agogo. And we kind of make, crazy jokes about you never know who's going to show up. That's we mentioned that earlier with Styles showing up at Southern Honor. It is just not unusual for a Billy Gunn to be on a Onefall show. It's actually kind of at times like, wait, Billy's not going to be there? Like that, you know what I mean? Like it's just a weird kind of thing. But I tell you that the funny story coming out of this show, like I said, I was there. There was a gentleman there, and I don't have his last name in front of me. I should have, but his name was Scott. He's one of the strength and conditioning coaches for UGA's football team. They surprised him and pulled him into the ring. He got to run the ropes with Billy Gunn. He got, so again, fun story, but that's kind of the developing theme from these Monday shows. If you're missing them and you're in the Athens, Watkinsville area, even anywhere close, I drive usually it's about 45 minutes roughly for that show for me. They're just fun shows. Like you're going to see just some fun matches. It's, it's guys trying some things, just doing a little bit different things. Like, I don't know if you've managed to see, Sebastian Blaze and Parker Lee are now in a tag team called Mantasy.
I have seen a couple videos about it. I haven't seen them wrestle, but I'm going to need to go ahead and take a deep breath and watch some of that because that just sounds great. I've seen them both wrestle, not tag teaming with each other. Both are incredible athletes, and I really want to see this team based on the name alone. And just follow up what you're saying about fun Onefall shows. There's always multiple things that after a Onefall show, it's like that sounds really interesting, and I wish I had seen that. And then when I've been there, when I've wrestled there or I've been there to hang out, there's always multiple matches that are like, that was really, really good and deserved to be seen by more people, or that was super interesting. And that's the kind of environment when you have a big crew like they have, and they run so many shows and they run so many different styles of shows. I mean, like they have TV tapings, they have house shows, and then they have their regular arenas they're at every month. So there's always something that's interesting with Onefall. And there's plenty of promotions that have matches that are really good, but not every place has things going on that are interesting. Mm-hmm. There is a big difference.
Look, I'll specifically point out things like the main event, the 6-man. Vari's in there. He's doing, like the mix and with the confines of one match. Vari, there's a chant going that Billy Gunn of all people starts going lucha, lucha, and he just starts. He's doing the lucha moves. Well, then Billy's in there, and Billy's wrestling Billy style. Then Brady comes in, and he's wrestling it so. Literally within the confines of one team, they're just throwing out 3 different styles, but yet they're interacting with the fans throughout the whole match. Like Billy's, yelling out at the fan, and a pot, trying to get chance, but it's also just kind of like, he'll he's getting taken down when he tags, he gets out, and he's like, I'm too old I'm not going back. I don't want any more. But the fans are just going back and forth. It's just fun. That's kind of my point. It's just a fun show.
You don't need to know anything about Onefall, and you don't really need to know anything about professional wrestling. If you just roll up at one of these shows that they do, you're going to have a fun time.
Yeah. That's
the biggest thing. And not every place is like that. You're not always going to have fun at a wrestling show. And their shows are interesting for me. Like, I don't like to sit when I'm at a Onefall show. I don't really like to sit in the back as the show's going on. I want to go watch the fans watching this match. I want to see what they're doing in the ring because it's interesting. They have a great mix of talent.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I agree. So again, check them out, onefwlive.com. That's where you get your tickets. But you got to follow them on social media because never, ever, ever have I seen promotion that literally on the show day of one of their shows is promoting 2 other shows on their social media. It's just a constant, like, hey, the posters are on a move.
I'm going to go ahead. I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but based on last year, but just wait till you see what they got Cinco de Mayo weekend.
I can only imagine because I think last year they had like 4 shows, or something like that in one day. So it wouldn't shock me in the least. Oh, not to mention, by the way, they're doing stuff with the Athens hockey team that's up there. The Rock Lobsters, I think is their name. But then they're just they're everywhere. By the way, we jokingly call they have the South Carolina show. And I'm like, wait, y'all run? He's like, well, it's Hartwell. It's literally like throw a rock across it and you're in South Carolina. That kind of stuff, all the way down to McDonough, and all over the place. So it's just a lot of shows, and that's why I said you got to follow them on social media. That's a quick run through of everything that we look as we look back on the week that this past weekend, but of course leads us always to the same question. Once we kind of go through all of the stuff, we kind of have to ask ourselves, who won the week? And listen, there are some weeks it's a little bit of a struggle. I kind of shockingly knew your answer, so go ahead and gloat and pick why you deserve to win.
Well, I won the week because I made the biggest loudmouth in Georgia for the last 7 years quiet. And I left him bleeding in his own blood. There's been lots of people who cover Georgia wrestling and they talk about Southern Honor, and you cannot talk about Southern Honor without Gary Lamb. And Gary was always talking about he was the top dog in the state. I had an objection with that. I've had an objection for a long time. And Gary's the one. He punched me. I didn't respond. He punched me again, said, I'll see you in the cage. And I had to take the fight to him and did. So I always feel like I'm a top dog in the state. I've told you that. The other top dog in the state is Gary Lamb. And I won the war. I won the week.
I'll look. I can't say you didn't. So I'm not going to sit here and push back on that one and say the only other case to be made for who won the week. I think this past weekend, obviously, I would throw Alexander Lev in that mix as he climbed. And he finally reached the mountaintop at Southern Honor, defeated Joe Black, somebody I know he held in a high respect, and a lot of people do across the state of Georgia as far as being one of the guys. So I would make the case Lev as well. But I sit here and argue. Rarely do we do this. Co-winners of the week, because I don't have to like a lot of what you said in that sense, but you kind of have to acknowledge the fact that you did win, and it is in a cage, and anything is legal in a cage.
I think that if you have your double main event cage match winners, that's it's risky to have 2 cage matches on a show, but me and Gary had a fight, and then Lev went out, and that was like it must have been like a 20, 25-minute match. And if you can beat and pin someone like Joe Black, then you're doing something right in wrestling, and you deserve to be receiving accolades. And, I don't know how long he's going to hold the title because he had to go through hell to get it. But Lev deserves to be well, not on the top of the mountain. He can share the summit of the mountain with me this week. But yeah, that was very impressive.
And now, in a grander scale, we're not going to change that, obviously, but in a grander scale, one could make the argument Southern Honor won the week. They came back. They had that long off, lots of question marks. Look, we were honest. We asked those questions on this show. What does it look like? Is it better than, less than, different than? What do successfully? I would say they did a different than show, and it made it actually, a very major surprise. Great crowd. Double main events delivered both. By the way, again, you brought it up. It's two different styles of matches. That was the danger. If it's two very similar, then that's where your problem is. But they were so different that it worked. And an argument could be made, I guess, in Southern Honor won as they have a successful kind of comeback.
I don't think there's any question that. I mean, that was such a big deal when. You couldn't have your big anniversary show in October. That's the biggest show of the year. The building was closed before that. So you had to have an abrupt, because they did not have a lot of time to plan. They had to have an abrupt thank you for the memories styled show in September. Going in with the anniversary show, I mean, when you talk about storytelling and angles and matches that are on tap, you're going to have all your main event stuff planned for your anniversary show. So they had that going for them, but to be able to switch up, to go to anytime you start in a new venue, you never know what you're going to get. I've promoted new venues, and it's kind of like you always got to be like, we'll see how many people are here. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the vibe is. Until I'll say in the locker room, until maybe 7:30 or 7:45, we still didn't know. I mean, we really still didn't know what it was going to be like once the bell rang. And I don't think we really did know until Carly Bravo went out and started the show and welcomed everybody and got everyone hyped. I don't think we really knew that what the crowd was going to be like until then. So we did have a monitor in our back and we're watching. I don't think we knew until then. And then after that happened, once Carly started his match with OXP and we saw that people were really into it, they showed out. That's when we knew. I don't know how long the brewery is going to be the venue. I do hope we could go back. I do hope momentum is capitalized on. I haven't had those conversations, but at least for this week, Southern Honor absolutely won the week.
Again, I agree with you 100% on that. And by the way, good call on sending Carly out first, right? Him and OXP went out and did a phenomenal match, and it was a good starter. Good call, especially to him, just to hype the crowd.
Yeah, Carly's one of those wrestlers who's going to get people, whether you know him or not. If you were just there and you're at the brewery and you're like, "There's wrestling tonight," okay, you're going to be, all right. Who is this guy? And I want to see more of him. That's going to be the Carly Bravo appeal. You don't have to know anything about him. You need 3 seconds to put your eyes on him and just be like, I want to see more. That's it. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, for years I've been saying, like, the first time I saw him come out, this was, years ago, he came out, and it's one of those, like, he's a guy who has it. Like, what is it? I have no idea. But one time we joked about it. He was doing a live stream, and I was just happened to be watching. I was at a spot. I pulled it up on my phone. I'm watching, and he was just on the street, kind of literally a street outside of a building, just talking or whatever. And somebody came over to him and was like, "Hey, man, can I get a picture with you?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And then the guy's like, "What do you do?" And he's like, "Wait, you don't know who I?" He's like, "No, you looked like somebody. You looked like somebody famous." And he's like, "So I wanted to get a picture with you." And I'm like, that says everything you need to know about Carly, right? Like I don't know what he does, but he's somebody.
You can teach moves. You can teach wrestling psychology. You can't teach charisma.
No, I agree.
And Carly has, more than he knows what to do with sometimes. So yeah, it was a great start to a show, and I thought the show was laid out very well. I enjoyed most of it. I did not enjoy getting hit in the head with a beer can. That's the thing I did not enjoy. I did not enjoy getting hit in the nuts. I did not enjoy getting my head thrown into a cage. I did not enjoy bleeding, but I enjoyed most everything else on the night.
Staples to the head. I mean, the staple like that was probably not enjoyable either. But
You know what? You know what? I ended up with an extra $12. I might, if we do that again, I might have to make it like $50 bills on up if I'm going to take that punishment again.
absolutely.
So at least I got paid to get stapled in that.
There you go. So again, our winners of the week, Southern Honor as a whole, Lev obviously for climbing the mountaintop but getting the Southern Honor Championship, and of course Matt Griffin defeating Gary Lamb inside the steel cage. There's your winners of the week. Now let's jump into some of the categories we do here on a monthly basis. Let's jump right into the hot hand, as we're going to talk about some of the champions across Georgia right now. And I didn't lock it into like primary champions, secondary champions, just kind of champions across the state in general who have a lot of momentum. Obviously, the hot hand. Look, we'll just start right out of the gate with Lev. He picked up a huge win there. He's the new Southern Honor champion. You talked about what happened, at NWA. You talked about all the momentum he's got across the state. You got to put Lev in the conversation just because of the sheer everything that's happened. Look, is it recency bias? Maybe. But again, guess what? I jokingly tell people the hot hand is 100% recency bias. That's what it's called.
I was going to say, I mean, that's the exact thing of what a hot hand is and should be. I mean, he's hot because he just won a huge title in the state against one of the pillars. I'm going to be interested. We're going to have to do a podcast where we talk about like the 5 or 10 pillars of Georgia wrestling. Let's make sure we do that. But as far as this week, Alexander Lev is number 1 as far as the hot hand.
Next up, somebody and have a lot of experience with, Mr. Tim Bosby down at Action Wrestling. Mm-hmm. He is obviously the current Action World Heavyweight Champion. He's got a pretty long, significant reign going on down there, and a lot of people. Look, conversations behind the scene was when he won that title, it was like, who? What? And I think over the last, months, he's kind of proved who he is. And he's just been on a roll ever since, it feels like. And that's why Tim Bosby makes the list.
Yeah, Tim Bosby, I mean, he's the Action World Champion. And that's not just a Georgia title. We call it the Action World Championship because it's been defended overseas. And Bosby has not defended overseas, but he's defended it in Tennessee, Alabama, Indiana, Texas, and I know there's 1 or 2 more states that off the top of my head I can't think of. All those places in addition to Georgia. He defends it almost every action show. He's defended it against a slew of if you look down the list, it's extremely impressive. He's also wrestled Samurai Del Sol and Timothy Thatcher this year, among others. So it's like, Tim Bosby has put together a hell of an impressive resume for this year in general, and that's why he's Action Champion. He's the he's the guy who comes in. Yeah, he talks a lot. He's got a big mouth, and you know something about that. But he's taken on everybody he can. He's a hell of an athlete, a hell of a wrestler, and he just turned 21. He was 20 when he won the Action World title. He's 20. So, when you talk about people with huge futures ahead of him, he's one of them.
The crazy thing is I'm looking at our list, and 4 of the 5 are pretty young. And that tells you, I think, a lot where Georgia wrestling is now with a kind of a youth movement where you're seeing a lot of these young guys come up. Next guy on our list, Brady Booker, is the Onefall. He's the Onefall wrestling champion. The reason why he's on the list, folks, is because on a given, a lot of people are like, hey, our champion delivers their, no knock on anybody, but they're like, hey, our champion, they defend that title every month. And I'm like, on an average month, Brady Booker defends that title 10 times. It just feels like it. And I may be exaggerating, but it feels like it. They run 12 to 15 shows in a month. Let's go with he's going to defend it somewhere between 5 to 10 times in that month. Against.
And when he's not defending it on Onefall shows, he's in a tag match or a 6-man. So even if he doesn't have a title defense, it's not like he's dormant on a lot of these shows either.
Yeah. Listen, you can make the same case, by the way. Varia Morales, the breakout champion, kind of the same boat. Like you could almost put these two together where they're all constantly defending it against somebody, and it's two different style matches, but the absolute chaotic schedule they have. And a guy, by the way, like Vari, I had a chance to talk to him Monday night. He was like, I'm on like 2 hours sleep. I was in Florida the night before, flew in, it was like just constant, the schedule that he takes kind of the same as he's all over the place in Colorado, Texas, etc. So I might actually go Brady Booker / Vari Morales, just your Onefall champions, just because of the sheer number of defenses and the crazy schedule that they have.
Yeah, some champions, I mean, you might be a champion in one spot, and it means you defend your belt once a month, once every 2 months. Sometimes that means you're defending it 2 or 3 times on a weekend. Like we just talked about, Bosby has defended it in so many different states. That's what being the action champion means. You're going to defend it all over the country. So, those things are impressive. So the Onefall champions, they're consistently, by staying champion, are going to, by default, get on the hot hand list because every weekend there's another challenger.
All right. Guys, listen, Hunter James is on this list for a couple reasons. He's our next one up, and it's not because, here's the thing, if he's at Southern Fried, he's defending the Classic Championships. But if he's at Viral, he's the Outbreak champion. Oh, now if he's at Southern Honor, he's going to be defending the Jake the Snake Legacy. So not only is he defending on a regular basis, he's defending 3 titles, within a potential of a month. He's got to defend all 3. Look, the young man's been racking up belts all over the place, clearly, as we just discussed. But again, recency bias, he wins in a 4-way ladder match against Kyle Matthews. I mean, there's just awards named after him, right? There's Bryce Cannon, who was number 1 with Carly Bravo on these wrestlers list as the best wrestler in Georgia at the time. And by the way, Ashton Starr was your current champion that he beat, so you got to tip your cap to Hunter James. And even though, listen, I don't say this often, but everybody knows that, Hunter and I have a back and forth a lot. He's a little bit of a prick, let's be honest with you. You could probably appreciate that a little bit, I'm sure. But he is what he is. But he is a champion.
It's one of his finer qualities, yeah.
That's what I figured you would say. So Hunter James is on the list. CT Keys, he's the last one officially on the list. He is your current Southern Fried Heavyweight Champion. Again, he's just recently won that title after a long, huge climb. Same thing. Oh, by the way, while you're chasing sour and potato, you got to wrestle Judas a few times, on a Southern Fried show to get there. So obviously a lot of obstacles in the way, but CT Keys does that and is your new Southern Fried Heavyweight Champion. Got to put him on the list right now. By the way, not to mention all the other great things he's doing at Southern Honor and these other places that he's at as well. So,
yeah, I mean, CT Keys, if you're going to become the Southern Fried champion, if you're going to be the top dog there, again, everyone knows about the history between me and David Manders, but Todd Sexton is going to keep you running. He is, if he is not somebody who's going to, all right, why don't you take a couple months off? You're going to be defending the title. You're going to be active at the top of the card. You're going to be on all the posters. You're going to be one of the main guys. So, when you talk about Southern Fried, they are a promotion that has a legacy in terms of how long they've run shows, and they've run shows consistently. And heck, they got another big show I hear coming up on Thanksgiving again.
Massive Ultimate Battleground is one of their traditions that they run there. And we'll talk about that here a little bit in the next upcoming week or two as we head into the Thanksgiving week. One other name that's not on the list, and I kind of had the back and forth with it, like should I not? But I wanted to kind of mention it because it's going to tie a little bit into our next segment. There's a young man, Mike Cunningham. He is the current Nightmare Factory champion. He's defending that. By the way, he's defending that title this upcoming weekend at the Apex down in Augusta. So it's not like that belt's just hanging on a wall somewhere. He is going to be taking that belt around state. But obviously the reason
he's wrestling Wheezy T, Tyshawn Perez. That's an interesting match. The Wheezy T's appeared several times in action, and really good wrestler. So that's going to be an interesting matchup.
And obviously, the reason, if you've not followed social media, you're not, following independent wrestling across the nation, you may not be aware why I kind of went back and forth is over the last couple of weeks ago, he was WWID'd, Mike Cunningham. So now he is a WWID guy. He's the Nightmare Factory champion. I think the only reason I hesitated just because of the lack of number of shows he had been on lately, because clearly we know now why, is because he was down at the PC doing his, tryout, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of why he wasn't on my particular list, but I could make a case for why he should be on that list. But it kind of leads us into the next topic I want to talk to you about. I had these conversations, I feel like, hundreds of times over the last, 9.5 years, just sharing my thoughts. And, sometimes I get pushback, sometimes I get agreement. And I couldn't really think of, there's a couple people, and you topped the list here of guys that I think, hey, this is somebody that I want to have that conversation with. I'm in locker rooms a lot, and I hear things like, man, that guy deserves to be signed, or that guy's good enough to be on TV, and, he's such a great wrestler in the ring and all that kind of stuff. And I always throw out, there's a couple things. It's not just about the moves. And one thing I don't think a lot of people like to hear is it's not just about moves, but is there an industry, and there probably is, and we'll make that case, but I think timing is everything in wrestling. You got to be at the right place at the right time. And there's more to that I want to get into. And I just want to add, kind of get your thoughts on some of that as well.
I mean, there's so much that goes into it. I mean, just as, you can see who's hot on the indies can absolutely be a thing, because it often doesn't depend on what you're doing. Or you just don't have control over it. Like, hey, I might be going and do these shows in a different area. You can't control how viral something may go. How you can't necessarily control, if you're not the promoter, how many people may be watching. But like, just as an example, last year when we booked our Dean show up in Jersey at the H2O Center, we had no idea. We knew we were going to try the best show of the weekend. I wouldn't try to run a WrestleMania weekend show that didn't try to steal the weekend. But I had no idea how much it would blow up. We had 150 people in the building. We had tons of people, that night and the next day talking about it was the independent show of the year. It was the best show they've seen in 10 years. They had, like so many people talking about it. So as a promoter, it's like, how can we control that? Well, there was a lot of different things that we couldn't control, but we had factors in, like, it was great timing. We were able to put together a great collection of talent, and it all came together. It's the same thing as far as being a wrestler. You got to be good, but everybody's good. Mm-hmm. You can be great, but everybody needs to be great. Like the in-ring skill is one thing, but do you have the charisma of, I want to watch this person do these moves. I want to watch this man or this woman be a wrestler and do this. Like, do you have that likability factor? That can play such a huge role. You don't always have to be the best wrestler. You do have to be somebody who's of interest. And striking while you're hot and doing as much as you can and getting in front of as many different eyes as you can is such a big thing, and a lot of people don't realize it. And then you're also going to have inherent biases. Like, my biggest bias in wrestling is I don't want to do anything I don't do. And I don't want to work with anybody that I don't want to work with. Like, I don't actually like you or think I will like you. You're not going to end up on action shows. So you actually have to be likable and be easy to do business with and be a professional. And a lot of times people really concentrate on the word wrestling, and there's plenty of wrestlers, right. I'll say it, in the state of Georgia, who understand the wrestling part. They don't understand the professional part. And that's very frustrating, because you have wrestlers who are so talented in the ring, and they're never going to go anywhere simply because they don't understand the professional part. And if they don't listen to begin with, I don't really want to waste my breath or time talking to them about why they aren't likely to make it without a huge change in attitude or what have you. There can be certain things that people need to tweak on their gimmick. You can have as talented a wrestler as you want to be, You can have the most talented wrestler in the world, but if your gimmick is, "Hi, I'm happy 420 man, the weed guy, and I want to," sorry, that's not a thing that's gonna work for you. Like,
Yep.
like that's an example I've actually used recently. Like, if your gimmick sucks, you got to change it, and then you got to listen to change it. So there's so many different things, but momentum, once you get it, you don't necessarily know how you're going to get it, but once you get it, you have to take advantage of it.
And I wanted, because one of the things, when I was, that hits on the nail there where I was trying to get to is it's about timing, because there's a lot of, a lot of people say like luck, or you got to be lucky. Well, look, somebody I heard on a podcast, his name's Jeff Jarrett, made some comment of luck is often when opportunity meets preparation. That's luck,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people call luck. So it's like a lot in wrestling, you brought it up. You can't control when your opportunity is going to come. Sometimes it's there. Look, I've had, there's a backstory. I'm not going to get into it. But Lev being the Southern Honor champion, I was told a backstory over this past weekend that you would just have to hear to believe. But that's again, is it luck or is it just being prepared? And when the opportunity puts it out there, because we all remember when Lev debuted at Southern Honor, right? Like, you would have thought, he literally was just I think he was like a paramedic or something. He was just like an extra. And now look at him. But it was about seizing that opportunity. Was he lucky? No, he showed up. He was there. He was willing to do, he was being, like you said, the professional part, on and on and on. And I look, in my line of work, and I know, and I guess our line of work, to me, I always tell people it's about networking, it's relationships, it's building those things, because in wrestling, it also comes in, about being in front of the right people who can help you long term. But it's, another wise man in wrestling once said, it's not about who you know, it's who's willing to say they know you to help you get those opportunities. And that's about being professional. That's about being, and guys, like specifically I wanted to mention, I know a lot of people were posting this past weekend about somebody like Christian Taylor. He's there early. He's putting chairs up. He's taking chairs down. It doesn't matter if he's on the card. By the way, phenomenal match. We brought it up that he's got a big win, but he's still there putting chairs up after the show. He's helping put the ring up, taking it down, all those kind of things. And I don't do this often. Quick shout out I wanted to give to somebody, and here's why. I just know a little backstory, so I didn't feel like this person had or needed to do any of this. But somebody like a Zach Buchanan showing up, doing the same thing, helping with the cage, helping, hey, we need you to do this. Can you do that? Like, it wasn't security, but you know what I'm talking about. So it's like, hey, help out with this. Yeah. All of those little things matter, because it's like sometimes you can get a little too far ahead of yourself of thinking, hey, I don't need to do this anymore. I'm beyond that. Be careful who you're saying that in front of, because that stuff goes noticed but the other way.
There are. I'll just tell you a couple things real quick. Well, first off, it is preparation and opportunity. I mean, luck can be something like, hey, if this major TV company never came to my area, I might not have got the tryout match and might not have. But if and might not have gotten a contract or might not have been on TV for them. But if you're not prepped, if you're not somebody who has professional gear, is in shape, is a really good wrestler, and has people, most of the major companies have people who, they know you on the indies. There's lots of people who will speak well of you. Just as an example, last week there was a show in North Carolina, and they needed a particular type of wrestler, and I said to the promoter, hey, I got somebody that I feel very confident in referring. And I did refer her, did well, and I was told absolutely there's opportunity to be back down the road. So it's not just one shot out of it. But, this is a person who also goes to shows, goes to other shows, wrestles, and is professional. There are, by the flip side, plenty of wrestlers that I know that I would not recommend and that I would not send to another promoter. There's you got to be in the room to get opportunities. I had on a show last week, I had made it known the day before, like, hey, we're going to do, I'm not going to advertise, but it's basically going to be like an open challenge type thing. I want to see who's going to show up and do well on Next Up. And I did not have a lot of people show up on Next Up, which is funny because the last time I did that, I actually put out a graphic and said it's going to be against somebody who looks really good on Next Up. And I didn't have a lot of people show up. And it's very, very strange when you have people who say they want opportunities and they don't put themselves in the room. Zach Buchanan's appeared for me a couple times with action, and I like him. I'm very biased towards him because I know his dad going back 20 years. His dad took care of me. I knew his brother. His brother appeared for us, and then he got signed. So I only got to have Ben in once or twice. But, you know, Zach's a good kid, and he basically makes you not able to ignore him because he's there and able to assist. Doing the stuff like sending an email or sending a message when you want to get on a show will only go so far. Mm-hmm. But when you get to know somebody, and as a promoter or as a booker, when I'm running shows, the best time to get to know me is during setup and teardown. Because if you approach me at 7 o'clock before I start a show, I have no time for you. I've literally had to go ahead and say stop. So, somebody like Zach Buchanan, others, JT Paradox, Hayden Seal, they put themselves in the room to be able to receive opportunities when they are there. And it's like, all right, now I want to look out for more. Like, these are somebody like who's really on my radar. My current tag team champions, Teriyaki and Jay Lucas, they came to me doing Next Up stuff. That's how I met them. They showed up before a show. They used to help out a bunch, do a bunch of matches. And it's like, I know two things. These guys aren't ready yet, but I know that they will be soon. And when they really start hitting their potential, it's going to hit really big. And now they're my tag team champions. And both go up to JCW and GCW, among other groups. So,
but it comes in the part of, like you said, the the reputation building, the trust. You get those connections, and then when you need something, I always tell somebody, like, that's why you go to a show over and over and over, trying to help out or whatever, because at some point, and you're just like, oh yeah, who was that? You're immediately, when you think, because it's WWE. I'm going to use them as an example. Right now, the trend seems to be, from everything you hear, is people go try out and they're like, hey, we love you. We just don't have like something for like what you do right now. But if that pops in our head, or we're going to try, like, you will be somebody that we think of. It works the same on the indies, in my opinion. You're like, hey, I want a short, stocky, fire hydrant kind of wrestler. And then like down the road, you're like, hey, right now I don't need it. But then you're like, hey, this was a JT Paradox. Like, you remember the kid because, like, that's, he's got the amateur background. He's got the build I'm looking for. Then you can hit him up because he's already been in front of you. Hey, I need a good-looking baby face that the girls are going to love, whatever. Zach Buchanan pops in. You know what I mean? Like, those kind of things are like, that's why you're in front of people.
Yeah, you want to give yourself reasons for people to speak well of you. Because the flip side is, I've also had people who just absolutely have buried themselves with me, and others. And for usually very ridiculously stupid reasons. It's almost never been because of a bad match. It's usually ridiculously stupid stuff. And, well, your luck wasn't there that day because you weren't prepared and you couldn't give yourself an opportunity.
And sometimes I don't think wrestlers realize that sometimes, like, the being in front of you, like, again, I'll come up with another name off the top of my head here. Xavier Cross. I'd heard his name. Bull had spoken highly of him to me as we've messaged and talked and stuff. But when I saw him in person, I was like, holy crap, I did not realize how big he was. Like, when he stood face-to-face with Judias and he was just as tall, if not taller, that's a reason why that's why you get in front of a promoter. Because sometimes just on the video or what, hey, I sent you a match or whatever. If you're wrestling another big dude, it's like, okay. Or if you're wrestling a small guy, it's even worse because you're like, oh, I know that guy, he's small, so he's probably not that big. When I saw that kid in person, I'm like, wow, like, he's big. Again, is he young? Is he green? Is he raw? Whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but he's almost 7 foot tall. Like, I can dance with this, right? I can make this work. So again, it's just about being in front of somebody consistently. It's not about I showed up once, they didn't use me, so I didn't go back. Like, okay, that's not going to work, man. You got to keep showing up, keep getting better, keep improving, stay in front of the right audience. Hey, I'm not saying don't work smaller promotions. You got to get your reps in. You got to do that. But man, we don't have to tell you, but we kind of do on a regular basis. We kind of tell you the places you should be. Do everything you can to be in those places in front of those people. Look, I tell a story here. I talked to somebody once and said, hey, you should try to get on the Onefall shows. I'm like, well, I hear they don't pay well. Like, all right, that's all I need to know about you, right? Like, that's like, if you're chasing a $25 paycheck for the weekend, I understand that, but you don't see the value in what I'm trying to, tell you. Tells you everything you need to know, right? It is what it is. But I just, again, to wrap it up, I just kind of, when we always hear things like, oh, this guy, he's the best wrestler on the, oh, he's so good. He's such a technical guy. He's so good in the ring, whatever. I said something to a young man we both know, and I literally looked at him and said, hey, I get it. You want to be the best wrestler on the planet. There's 10 guys that I can rattle off like this are just as good as you in the ring right now in Georgia. So you got to find something else. You got something else to make you different. That it's, all those moves are great, and I'm impressed that you can do them. But if I don't care, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, everybody doesn't deserve it. I know that sounds crazy. We would want it to, but what do you deserve? You had an opportunity, and it didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think about it from my own perspective, and I've said this to some wrestlers. I'm like, I'm giving you advice, and if you can't take advice from somebody who has no appreciable skill, yet has managed to wrestle a ton of top names and make himself super relevant when he's 47 and he's been around wrestling for 27 years, if you can't learn something from someone like me, you just can't learn anything. Like I don't mind denigrating myself that I don't have any super talent more special than anybody else. I realized a couple things very early, and that led me to a lot of things I have, but it's not always about the skills.
And it isn't. And look, that's going to lead us into the blind reveal segment brought to you by our friends over at VideoBolt. You talked about not having the skills. Let me explain something to you. If you're looking at the background here, if you've looked at the intros, if you've looked at all these headers or whatever, if you think I got a friend of ours. We both know him. His name is Dylan. He's great at that kind of stuff. Guess who's not? Me. But if I can do this with the tools that VideoBolt provides for me, I promise you, folks, anybody can do it. So, like I said, let's jump into the blind reveal here. But before we do, just a quick word from our friends over at VideoBolt. And that's right, man. Check out our buddies over at VideoBolt. Use the Tapped Out Pod. That's a promo code. That'll get you started, man. VideoBolt, like I said, man, they make the job simple, easy for you. It's templates. You're typing in stuff, you're adding logos, and it does all the work for you. And it kind of makes the job super simple. And matter of fact, as we have the conversation, if you wonder, as we head into the blind reveal segment, gee, shocking, where do you think the graphic comes from? From VideoBolt. So let's jump into the blind reveal. I want to do something a little different. You had this huge thing. You had the huge cage match with Gary. So I thought to myself, I said, Self, what are Matt Griffin's biggest feuds? Like, what are his best feuds that he's had over here? Because over the last decade, since we've been around, you've kind of done quite a few. You've had a few across the entire state. So I thought, let's just blind rank 5. I'm going to rattle off 5 to you, and you're going to rank them from 5 to 1, pick wherever you like them. So let's start with the death match. You had this whole thing with the death match, all across Georgia. But primarily, at the Blood and Honey series, Nathan Mowry's promotion down in Atlanta, where does that rank on your list of feuds that you've had here, say, in the last 10 years?
And me versus deathmatch wrestling, and then embracing deathmatch wrestling. I mean, it might be recency bias, but I feel like that's my number 2. I think very highly of deathmatch wrestling. It wasn't even really a thing when I started years ago. It was just a, hardcore or street fight, and then you'd have some elements with weapons. And, I did that. I've got a great picture of myself from years ago. I'm giving somebody a leg drop through a table, and both my boots are visible, and there's tons of there's thumbtacks just totally in both boots because we had a ton of tacks and I bumped into them. And I've been able to do a lot of stuff, and now that I'm a little bit older and I'm starting deathmatch wrestling, it personally means a lot to me. What we've been able to build with Blood and Honey, with Nathan Mowry, and myself being a small part of it. Yeah, I'm going to put that at number 2.
Number 2. Next up, we're going to go with David Manders at Southern Fried Championship Wrestling.
Oh, man. Thanksgiving's coming up. And last year, Thanksgiving is what kind of got the bowl really rolling on that. I think I'm going to stay home this year, but the last 2 Thanksgivings, I made it known that I had some issues with David and with Southern Fried and Monroe in general. So, blind reveal, I'm going to put that at number 4. And the reason I'm putting it at number 4, I don't really like the way my match with David ended. Very unhappy with that loss.
Did not go as well as the one you had this past weekend, that's for sure.
I had to go ahead and fight David. I had to fight guys coming out of one door, coming out of the other door. Our good friend Charles, his son came out to run me back to the ring. So I felt like I had to fight the whole locker room and David. And then what happens.
Next up, kind of, I'm including you in, but it is action, and yourself against New South. That's another one that happened recently.
Yeah, the Action versus New South rivalry was something real interesting. I mean, it happened starting on the same night we were live on IWTV with the SCI Rumble, and Tim Bosby defended his title, and Ian Dylan Hales walked out the front door on a live stream, and all of a sudden, a couple hours later, we hear that they showed up at New South during their Hoss tournament, and then they came to pay us a visit. Hey, we won. We 3 of our best, Cruel, Jade Newman, James Shook, beat 3 of their best, Big Dave, Cabana Man Dan, Sean Christopher, and just for good measure, I laid out Dump Sanders after the match. So I like that one a little bit better because I feel like we won that. I'm putting that at number 3. And we're one of the potential, we're listed in Pro Wrestling Illustrated as one of the potential contenders for Feud of the Year, which is really cool.
Pick that issue up, folks. You'll see it because a lot of people are going to doubt you, but you showed it to me before we went on the air. So absolutely. Yep. That's it. Pick it up right now. It's the one with the women's 250 on the cover.
Pay no attention to the picture inside of Tank brutalizing me with a sickle.
Next up, we're going to go with Gary Lamb. Just so recently, you got to go with it.
I mean, recency bias. I won the war that's been waging. I've been at Southern Honor for 2 years. It's really been going on for over 7. I mean, that's got to be my number 1 of anything. Just standing on top of Gary, 1, 2, 3, and I just held it because I wanted that moment to last for a very long time. It was a proud moment. We had some Action fans, as you saw, who came up because they wanted to see my triumph.
I heard
and
them.
despite the odds, yeah.
By the way,
I was.
Thanks for the shout out. Thanks for the dedication. I guess you made it a point to, hey, listen, it worked because it got you right on the show. Right? It made a point that we had to have you on the show just for that reason.
You like that? I wanted to dedicate that to a lot of people. That's gonna be really funny when that hits the award-winning IWTV network.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Gary, it was a fun fight. He fought me very hard. He hit me very hard. So he held up his end. He is not a wrestler, but he's a performer, and he held his end up for what he wanted and needed to do for that. It would not have been as good a fight if he hadn't brought it to me. So I applaud him for that, and that's going to be recency bias. That's going to be my number one.
Absolutely. And then at number 5, because that's the only slot left available, it's yourself versus team tag back in the day. It is at 5, but it is, it's only there because it's the only slot. A lot of people would say it probably is because of recency bias. That one happened quite a while ago, relatively speaking. So that's going to fall in at number 5.
And, that was something that first year and a half of Action Wrestling. I mean, I got jumped by them on the very first show. Billy Buck was a top singles wrestler for his entire year and a half run. Team Tag were top tag title. A top tag team for that whole run. It was really fun. It was a really fun story we got to tell. And then we had a shocking finish in the end where AC Mack essentially turned babyface and saved Action Wrestling because he loved Action and didn't want them to take over it. And that ended 6 years ago, October 2019, and I still think about that often. That was a fun conclusion to it. I was at the ring for it, and that was that's a little bit more in the past, so maybe it's deserving to be at 5. But it was, in terms of personal influence on Action Wrestling, that's number 1.
And by the way, that end result kicked off a heck of a run for one AC Mack that you bring up, right? So, I mean, it kind of laid the groundwork to set out something in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, that's really going back, that's what led AC to 2.5 years later winning the Independent Wrestling World Championship. That it was that night right there starting that run, because that's what won him SCI, where he cut an incredible promo live, and then 5 months later he got the title shot against Alex Shelley. And I will tell you, the month before, when we announced it was going to be AC Mack versus Alex Shelley, AC Mack was nervous. He's telling me on the microphone, just say it, just say it, just say it. He was actually nervous. He had already wrestled his match, and then when AC beat Alex Shelley, the place exploded. We had all the wrestlers around the ring, so it was a really unique atmosphere. And that whole night was like a playoff basketball game. There was just a buzz in the air all night, and I've never had it since. And it came from this storyline that we started on our very first show. So, you never know where things are going to lead in pro wrestling. It's really interesting. I mean, heck, I'll have to tell you offline about how I actually ended up in Southern Honor. It's just a real funny story. You never know how things will hit, how personalities will either clash or get along, and it's why it's such a fun business and it's so addictive.
It is, and like I said, I mean, it's like the things that come out of these. Like you said, the AC Mack coming out of that. Your deathmatch stuff clearly may not be it may not be behind you. There's still more story to be told. Just kind of like the Gary Lamb stuff. There's story to be told there still left. Like what's next? Why? The question marks. I always love a good as things play out, the question marks. What's next? Like those are always the keys, right? So you always ask yourself what's next. But what's next for the holidays is obviously Thanksgiving's coming up, Black Friday, and like I said at the beginning of the show, man, I can't think of a better gift. Patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Sign somebody up for the $25 membership, because it'll be the gift that keeps on giving. They're going to get 8.5 by 11 every single month, so to keep coming to their mail. And I can't think of a better way to say, hey, I love you. And to your wrestling fan, whether it's a husband, child, spouse, partner, whether it's a friend, who knows, man, just sign them up. And like I said, Little Birds told me, keep an eye out. Might be a little coupon there for Black Friday. You never know, to take advantage of and buy somebody an annual membership. But, well, man, I appreciate you coming on. I know, it was a big weekend for you, and, wanted to give you a little bit of a platform to kind of put it out there. And, listen, honestly, gloat a little bit, shine a little bit. So,
hey, that's why we're in this business. You don't have a lot of shy personalities here in wrestling. And that if Gary had beat me, he'd have been on here telling you about, like, I told you Matt Griffin was a shithead for years, and hell, he'd be doing the exact same thing.
100%, I agree with you on that. Gary Lamb, not a man who's lost for words very often. So had he had the opportunity, which he would have, and hey, he would have. And who knows? Maybe I'll give him an opportunity to respond to this for that moment, see what he's got to say. Who knows? But again, man, I appreciate you coming on, and we talked about a lot of stuff about getting into the business, and AJ Styles showing up at his show, Billy Gunn's at his show. We always tell you, man, it's indie wrestling, and it's in Georgia. You never know who's going to show up at any show. I mean, yourself at Action, dude, you bring people in from all over the country. So it's not another place that it's another place here, like I said, in Georgia, that you never know who's going to show up. And man, the only way to do it, man, is to buy a ticket, get in the car, drive down to the shows, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see you at the matches.